Tanya. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. I will recommend though that you stop right here and go back and watch Ivan Part 1. This is the last segment of a 4-part series on this relationship. I always tell everybody if they're new to go back and at least watch Part 1 so you can get caught up, because this is the very end of everything. And I don't really reiterate or do any backstories once I move forward, because there's just a lot of detail. If you are returning, then you kind of know where we're about to jump off. I am going to, on this video though, kind of backtrack a little bit, because I did forget a few things with my last video, and I kind of wanted to explain some stuff that I didn't get to explain, just because the video was running so long anyway. So anyway, we're gonna just jump right into it. So this is the last part of Ivan Part 4. Where I left off is when I was going to court and we were fighting for custody of my son, and I was having to do shit to get my son back. Ivan had my son for about a month. It's the longest I've ever been without my son in his whole life. And so I really was devastated, but at the same time, I was very strong. I was actually really surprised how strong I was, just under the circumstances of everything that had been going on. But I think that, like I said before, all the frustrations and all of the pain and anguish and the things I had been going through, you know, for all these years, it kind of just came to an head. And at the time, I just looked at it as maybe God put me through these things to make me strong within this moment. Because if I had gone through this moment without going through any trauma, I don't know if I would have been strong enough to pull off the shit that I had to pull off. Because I really did have to play dirty with him. You know, I explained in the last video that I had to like sabotage, well, not sabotage, but I had to go and like threaten his family members and record and do PI shit. And I was following him like in different cars. We were stalking him. You know, me and my mother, we were like doing some really, you know, private investigator type bullshit, you know, but I was just trying to get all my pieces together because he was fighting dirty. I knew he was fighting dirty, so I had to fight dirty. But I had to look like I was fighting clean on the outside. Now, while I'm waiting to go to court, I didn't get to explain that part, so that's why I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. While we're waiting to go to court and after I had been served, it was about a month, like I said, a month that he had my son, and it was almost another month before we actually went to court. So in between that time, I really needed something to focus on because I was getting clean for the first time in my life. I was not drinking. I was not going out. Now, was I perfect? No, but I was trying to channel my energy into something more positive and not fall back and not do, you know, just fall back into the pattern of my old habits. I wanted to be a better person for my kids. I wanted to be a better person for myself. And the only way I could do that is to change my habits. So I started, oh, by the way, my parents lived in Duncanville. They had moved to Duncanville around this time. And so I lived with them in Duncanville. Now in Duncanville, there is a park. There was a park close by. It was a really big park. And I just started taking my kids there to go play, and while the girls were there playing, I would just kind of walk around the park. That walking kind of turned into me running, and then that became a habit. I was very athletic in school. I did sports. I even did kickboxing outside of school. But up until that point, I really didn't do any exercising or anything like that. So running really helped me clear my mind. It really helped me with the stress that I had. It really helped me focus on, you know, I was in my own thoughts and I was able to just let all my frustration and my stress out. And if anybody knows me today, like healthy fitness, I'm into like working out and trying different things. Like just, I'm very into fitness life now. So that's kind of where my fitness was born. It was a gradual step, but that's where it started, is me just walking and then running and then turning that into a habit. and it just became my relief. I started to do it every day. I would run even if it was cold or if it was hot or if it was raining, I would still run. So I would take my kids to the park, let them play, and then I would run this entire huge park. And then that just became the habit. Also around that same time, I was searching for answers still. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to completely heal as a person if I didn't get some kind of relief with my answers. It was eating me up for so many years, and I was ready to look at my problems and my emotions head on and say, okay, I need to deal with it. I need to face them. It's time for me to face my demons. It's time for me to face my struggles. I needed answers. I grew up as a Christian. I'm not a high almighty Christian, obviously, because I went through shit that I've gone through. I still cuss, I still drink, but I mean, I did grow up in a Christian, household. And when I was 18, I was baptized and I gave my life over to the Lord, and I grew up, in a Christian household, and we went to church. I really wanted to get back into that. I knew that I needed answers, and I wanted my life to be blessed. I wanted God to bless my life, but I couldn't ask him to bless my life if I wasn't living on the right track. So that just helped me focus more on the things that I needed to get, basically to get my shit together. So I started looking for a church. I started jumping around to different churches looking for a church. And when I finally almost gave up because I wasn't happy with each church that I went to, because the church that I went to when I used to live in Ferris, when I was in high school and stuff, it was a very small community type church, and I really wanted that home feeling that I had back then. I really wanted that as an adult for me and my children. So one day I'm just running at the park like normal, and I remember I ran past this church, and I'm like, hey, there's a church like literally like right here within walking distance. Let's go ahead. I just wanted to just try it. I had already tried a few others. I wasn't happy. I didn't feel connection, so we went. I really enjoyed the service. It wasn't a huge church, but it wasn't a super small church. It was kind of like an in-between church, and they were very much about the Duncanville community. Everybody was super nice and, introducing themselves, and I felt very welcomed, and the message of the day really spoke to me. I can't remember now what the message was, but I just remember being moved by it, and I remember thinking, if this is going to be the church, it feels good, but I'm going to try it out again, and then we'll just see how we go from there. I remember I left with my kids that Sunday, and we went to go get something to eat, and then I went back to my parents' house, and when I showed up, my mom was like, hey, this guy came by for you. And I was like, what guy? And she's like, oh, I guess the church you went to this morning, you filled out a guest slip, and they came by, and they bought, like, they wanted to introduce themselves, and they brought a banana nut bread loaf as a gift. And I was like, oh wow, like that's really awesome. Like I really felt special, and like they really cared. He ended up coming back by within like the next 30 minutes and seeing if I was home, and I was. And I remember he came into the living room, and he came with somebody else. I think it was like a deacon, and he was like the youth pastor. His name is Pastor Lee. And he came in, and he yes, I did use his real name because he's a pastor, and I did really love him. So he came in, and he sat down in the living room, and I gave him something to drink, and he asked if I enjoyed the loaf, and I said yes, and I thanked him for it. And so we just got to talking, and he wanted to know my history and why I went to this, if I had a home church, why I was looking for a new church, why did I go into the church. And I just felt compelled to just talk to him. Now, did I give him my full story? No, obviously not. But I did tell him that I was going through a custody battle, that I was struggling, that I was very sad. And I remember I got emotional. And I told him that I really needed God's guidance on this. And I was looking for answers. I didn't tell him what answers I was looking for, but I just told him I was looking for answers. He sat there and he prayed with me. And I was so moved by it. I felt like these people really cared, and I ended up joining the church. We started going every Sunday, and I started seeking answers. around that same time, my daughters decided on their own. They were like 9 and 10, I think, at the time. And they decided on their own that they wanted to give their life over to the Lord and they wanted to be baptized. And I thought that was the most awesomest thing ever. There was no proud parent moment that I've ever had but this one, because I mean, I've had several proud parent moments, but this one was extremely more so than others, because they made a soul-changing decision all on their own. I didn't do anything. I just was taking them to get a message every Sunday. They started asking questions. They saw someone get baptized, and then the more questions started coming out, and I didn't have answers. So what I did was I set up a meeting between them and the youth pastor, the one that came out to visit me, and he spoke to them. They decided to give their lives over to the Lord, and then the next Sunday they got baptized. And we had been going for a few weeks, so this happened gradually over time, of course. I was so happy. I was so happy. I felt like God was really standing beside me, and it just made me stronger and stronger. Now, again, like I said in my last video, I'm not here to promote religion and to be like, oh, this is how you're going to be able to get through your situation. This is just what worked for me. I'm just saying the things that worked for me, this is what worked for me. Going to church is what worked for me. I believe in the Lord. And so I put my faith in him. Now, at the same time, I started asking for counseling with the pastor, because again, I was searching for answers. I was happy to be going to church, but at the same time, I still harbored a lot of emotion because I still hated myself and I wanted relief from that. I felt guilty going to church. I felt like a phony. I felt like I was a prior drug addict, an alcoholic, I went through abuse. I put myself through this, and I was once suicidal. Like, how do I move on from that? And I really needed God's help with that. No one else could help me with that but him. I started opening up to the pastor. Again, I didn't tell him a lot of detail. I just told him that I was a drug addict and, blah, blah, blah. I was a prior drug addict, blah, blah, blah. And then I went through some stuff, and I felt guilty going to church, because around me I felt like, oh, everybody's coming to church and they're perfect, and here I am, like, so sinful and dirty, sitting amongst all these clean sheep. And he was like, no, that's not how that works. He's the one who told me that basically I already gave my life over to the Lord. I already was baptized. Doesn't mean that I can continue to do whatever the hell I wanted, but that God still stood beside me. My name is still in the book of life. I was still going to go to heaven. And it's okay if I got lost, as long as I tried to come back and rebirth myself. He told me I had to forgive myself. The only way for me to move on was to take all of my burdens that I had been through and lift them off my shoulders and give them to God and let him deal with it. And then to forgive myself. It was the best advice I was ever given. And it is exactly what I did. And it is exactly what helped me move on. I started to slowly forgive myself. I still didn't have an understanding of why I did the things that I did, or why I put up with the shit that I put up with. But I was able to say, you know what, I'm only human. And everybody makes mistakes, regardless if your mistake is smaller than mine or bigger than mine. We still all sin. We still all do shit that we're not supposed to do. And I know that I'm not alone. Even though I hadn't met anybody up until that point who had been in my situation, I knew that I wasn't alone. So I slowly started to give all this weight over to God. And I started to feel so much better. I also started to focus on me. I joined a gym. And the fitness of Sonia was born. I became a fitness guru. Now, even though I was eating healthy and like I started meal prepping and doing protein shakes and vitamins and I still do all that shit today, COVID kind of fucked me up. So, but I'm trying to get back on it. But anybody who knows me personally knows that this is something that it's a lifestyle that I chose, but this is how I chose it. I didn't chose it because one day I said, oh my God, I'm fat, I need to go to the gym. Actually, I was super skinny when I started. For me, it was therapeutic. The gym is very therapeutic. Even now, it's very therapeutic. When I'm stressed or I'm upset or my fiance pisses me off or my kids piss me off or anybody, my job is, I had a bad day, I go to the gym and I let it all out there. And it is my time away to focus on me. It not only helps me therapeutically, but it gave me confidence. It boosted my ego. I felt better. I felt stronger. I felt healthier. I felt like I looked better. And even though I was doing all those things, like I said, I started off skinny when I started going. I actually gained weight, but it was like a healthy weight. Because remember, I used to be a drug addict. And my drugs of choice were ice and Coke. So those things keep you up all night. You don't eat. I was like 105 pounds the whole time. Once I started to get into the healthy lifestyle, I gained weight, but it was a healthy weight. I wasn't like overweight, but it was a healthy weight. And I started hitting like 125, 130, but I was still in good shape. And so I was okay with that, but it's something that I still, like I said today, I still use, and it still helps me out a lot. I don't know if this is really true, but I feel like it's true. I feel like once you're an addict, you're always a recovering addict. You just find something else to kind of get addicted to, and I'm literally addicted to fitness stuff. Like, I've tried everything. Right now I'm doing hot cycling and I'm doing, going to the gym. Like, I haven't consistently been lifting weights, even though I should, but I was. I've done Camp Gladiator and I've done personal training. I've done athletic training. I've done, regular cycling classes. I've done boot camps. I've done it all. Like, any kind of fitness class, I've probably done it. So I like to just try new things to keep myself healthy, and I get bored really easily, so it just kind of helps me, try shit out. Try to see what works for me also. Once I won the custody battle of my son, it really helped my mindset. It really made me feel invincible. Like, I have been through so much, and this was the outcome. There's literally nothing else in life that anybody's going to be able to throw at me that I'm not going to be able to handle. At least that's what I thought. But up until that moment, that's how I felt. Like, I was invincible. And I ended up getting an apartment really close by to my parents because I was a single mom, so I needed help. And I lived there. I did struggle financially. It was really hard, being a single mom with 3 kids. It was tough. I started to make more money, and so I didn't get Medicaid or food stamps, not anymore. They kicked me off by then. So I had no problem humbling myself. The church actually picked me up as a family and paid my rent a few times. They also sponsored us in Christmas and gave my kids Christmas gifts. They even provided Thanksgiving for us one time. Like I said, I made no mistakes when it came to picking this church, or I felt like they chose me. But I became very close, and they would even come by and visit and see how me and the kids were doing. We celebrated when I got custody of my son. They knew, a little bit of history of that. So it was really nice. I felt, you have no idea, like I was starting to have peace for the first time in my life. Like real peace. Not like, oh, I'm peaceful just as an image like in the past, but like real peace within myself. I was facing my problems, I was dealing with them, I was finding the things that worked for me, and they did. And so I didn't have a problem humbling myself to have to take care of my family. But we did struggle financially. I wanted more. I wanted so much more. Around this time is when I started to want more. I'm extremely driven. And I feel like the reason why I'm so extremely driven, especially in my careers where I'm the most driven, is just because, like I said, I feel like my job is where I feel valued. My job never suffered because of what I went through in my personal life. I would still go to work and still bust my ass. It didn't do anything but push me to want to bust my ass even more. I am so obsessed with being successful today because of the things that I've gone through. And I didn't know that that's where the drive came from. You know, it took years for me to figure stuff out. You know, that's where wisdom comes from, right? You know, wisdom comes from the things that you learn throughout the years. And I learned a lot throughout the years. My mindset completely changed because I couldn't stay in my dark thoughts. My dark thoughts would still consume me if I allowed it. But I was also looking at the fact that God let me live through my suicide attempt for a reason. So I'm not going to go through my day the way I did in my past. I'm going to look at every day like a blessing, and I'm going to try to look at all the positive things that I can find. Even if something negative happens, I still need to look at the positives. And I refuse to cry anymore about my shit. I've done enough crying. I've done enough wallowing in my sorrow. I need to move on. So from that moment forward, I said I was going to laugh more. And I was going to not take life so seriously. I was going to joke, and I was going to go back to being the old, outgoing Sonia that is going to enjoy life. I want to enjoy life. I wanted to enjoy life, and I enjoy life now. So it really changed I had to really change my whole mindset. And with things progressing in my life and slowly getting better, it didn't do anything but amplify it. And I continued to do better and better and better. I'm proud of where I am today. It took a lot for me to get here, and I'm even prouder to say that I did it by myself. With all my demons and all the things that were stacked against me, I came out of it. Now, as I was going to church and as I was learning to live my life and having peace for the first time, I still didn't have the answer to my why at the time, but I didn't question it anymore. I said that God will reveal it to me whenever He's ready. And until then, I'm going to be this strong, independent, person, and I'm going to continue to just keep going. Now, because of my financial struggle, I decided to get a second job. And so I worked during the day for a private practice, and then at night I went to go work for this emergency dental place that had just opened. And so I was one of the first people that got hired. It's also where I met my best friend, who I love, and I'm still best friends with her today. She's my dental mentor. And then I met a girl. Now, I did reach out to this girl when I started this video, and I reached out to her just recently and said, hey, I'm going to mention you in this part. I don't even think she realizes how much of a significant role she played. I never told her anything, but she is how I figured out my why. So I started working at this emergency place at night, and her code name is going to be Rachel. And so she started working there. I had been there for a few weeks, and so she had just started working there too. And, we're working, and like I said, I became, this was like a part-time job for me, and I really wasn't trying to accomplish anything with this job. I was just working there part-time to make extra money. So I was a little bit more goofier at this job. I let my hair down, and I was, more playful with my coworkers and stuff. I still did my job, but so, I worked with her for a few weeks, and me and her got along, and she was really cool. And so One day I come to work and she's sitting in the back and she's in the little break room and she's eating lunch. And I go back there and I sit with her and she looks kind of down, you know, kind of sad. And I'm just like, hey, you know, is everything okay? Like, what's wrong? I really honestly didn't expect her to like open up so much. I thought she was gonna be like, you know, I'm just having a bad day, blah, 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 whatever, and move on. But she started going into her life story. And she started, well, not her life story, but the things that she was going through at that moment. She was going through a CPS case at that very moment with her children. I don't remember if she said she had been in an abusive relationship or not. I think she had. She had had a really bad, you know, rough relationship, and it caused her to get on drugs. And she was struggling with trying to get clean so she could get her kids back, because she actually had her kids kind of taken away, but I think they're with her mom or something. The point is story sounds familiar, right? As she's talking to me and I'm listening, first of all, I was surprised, but I remember hearing, well, of course, God say, talk to her. And I just started talking to her. I didn't, again, get into details. I just told her I had been in her situation before. And I told her, you know, I was in a bad relationship and I struggled for many years to get out. I struggled for many years to find my peace. And I got out of my situation and I'm clean. At that time, I think I had been clean for 3 years. As I'm talking to her, you know, she's listening. And when I finish, she says something that I hear to this day. And it made me so proud. She said, you don't look or act like somebody who's been through anything, much less an abusive relationship, even though she didn't know the extent of it. And I knew at that moment that I had healed. That I had healed enough to be normal and for people to see me and not see any kind of scarring of what was left behind. I mean, when you meet people, I guess you really don't know anything about them. You know, they say don't judge a book by its cover. You never know what happens behind closed doors, all that shit. It's true. But at the same time, I was living my life the way I live today, positively as much as possible. And it just made me feel good. Like I had accomplished what I had been trying to do all these years, which was be healthy mentally and physically and emotionally. I knew meeting her was not going to be my first time or my last time. Well, it was my first time. I met my last time. It wasn't going to be the last time I met someone who had a story similar to mine. And she wasn't. It was literally like God opened the floodgate and I started meeting all kinds of people with the same story that were either going through it, just getting past it, or way past it and they've already come to their place of healing. I really truly feel like God put me through the things that I did and allowed the things that happened so I can help others. Because I remember what I felt like going through it. I felt alone. I felt like I was the only person. I felt like nobody understood. I felt like I was never going to get better. And if I can encourage someone to look at me today and say, hey, look at where I'm at, you can be here too. I hope that gives them hope. I hope it brings them peace to know that they can do it. Because you don't have to be stuck in that situation. You don't have to be. I could have easily rolled over and allowed my shit to harm me for the rest of my life. I've seen it. I've seen it with people close to me. where they've gone through something and they allowed it to eat them up for the rest of their life, and then it destroyed them and they have no life. You know, my friend that killed himself, he was another great example. And with forgiving myself, I also decided on my own to forgive Ivan. And I remember he really didn't see his son much after that. He wasn't consistent, which I already knew he wasn't. And I don't chase people. Like, I shouldn't have to tell you how to be a dad. I shouldn't ask you, do you want to be a dad? Like, if you want to be a dad, you want to be a dad. If you don't, then hey, you know what? It's totally on you, but you're either going to be in my son's life or you're not. And eventually I had to cut him out of my son's life because he couldn't stay consistent. But he was little by, you know, he did sometimes see him around this time early on before he finally disappeared for a while. And I remember telling him one day, and I said, hey, you know, I just want to tell you that, because we had learned to be cordial. Like I said, I'm a cordial, non-dramatic baby mama, so I don't need to badmouth him to my son. Like, it just doesn't need to happen. As long as he's good to my son, that's all I cared about. But I did tell him one day, was we were doing an exchange at the police station, because that's what our court order was. And I told him that I was happy that we were being cordial, for one, and that I wanted him to know that I forgave him. And he was like, forgive me for what? And I was like, you know, for the shit you put me through. And I remember he laughed. I remember he laughed in my face. And I also remember not giving a shit if he laughed. I didn't get offended. I didn't get hurt. He was like, you're stupid. And then he just like got in his truck and left. I didn't care if he acknowledged his shit. I did it for me. It was part of my healing process. I didn't have to, but I did. Because I was moving on with my life, and it was the only way I was going to be able to move on. I'm not going to say that it still doesn't affect me, because it still does. Like, I don't cry over what I went through and things like that. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, it did long term change me. I have a very hard time trusting people. I don't put shit past anybody. Because he was so loving and sweet and caring and played this image role, you know, the saying, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, that's exactly what he was. So it's really hard for me when I meet people to be able to trust them. Now, do I give them the benefit of the doubt? Yes, I do. Do I make them suffer for what I've been through? No, I don't. But I am selectively social now. I'm not. Those close to me, like I said, they see that outgoing, social, goofy Sonia, the old Sonia, the Sonia that I really am. Work sees the silent, determined, headstrong Sonia. They don't think I'm social at all. And then there's acquaintances and people like that who I meet, and I was socialized and I would be polite. But until I can 100% trust you, I am kind of standoffish in the beginning. I still have to remind myself to love myself, if that makes sense. Because I also know that part of why I put up with shit was because I didn't love myself. I was looking for confirmation from somebody else to love me when I really should have been loving myself, and I didn't. So I have to remind myself almost every day that I'm a good person. I make mistakes, I'm human, but I am a good person, and I deserve to be loved, and I deserve to be treated with respect. And I'm a bad bitch. But it's a reminder. It is a reminder. I don't suffer from depression, but I do have triggers sometimes. Just little things, and it'll kind of throw me back a little. And so within those moments, I do stay to myself. The one thing that does bring me the most peace is just staying to myself. And like I said, it has a lot to do with trust. You know, my family struggles with why I don't like to be around them. And I know they don't understand. I know they probably still don't understand even after this video. But it's just because I don't harbor any hard feelings. I mean, they didn't know what I was going through. It's not their fault. It's just I have so much peace just being with me and my family. Like, it's hard to explain. Like I said, I'm selectively social, so sometimes big environments with lots of people, I get kind of like claustrophobic sometimes, or like I think I have like PTSD when it comes to stuff like that, because I'm just like, like there's too many people. And then there's some days where I'm okay, and I don't know until I'm in the situation. I've gotten better, but when I'm around my family, they for years thought that I was still this person. I know that they didn't understand why I was so toxic and fucked up and made a bunch of stupid mistakes, and I felt very judged by them for it. And so when I started to heal, I still know that they still saw me that way, because they still treated me that way. And I felt like, why do I need to prove to anybody anything about me? As long as I'm comfortable and I love myself, that's all that really should matter. I don't need to explain it to anybody. And that goes just for everybody. If you haven't gone through the shit that somebody's gone through, especially in my situation, I mean, in all honesty, I know I'm probably going to get judgment off of this story time that I've told. I know there's people out there who are like, oh my God, like you could have done this different. Or, yeah, there's a lot of shit I could have done different. But for one, have you gone through this? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you haven't if you pass judgment. Unless you've been in my shoes and went through the shit that I've gone through, it's so easy for outsiders to say, oh, well, I would have done this different. Well, you don't know until you're in that situation. It really taught me not to judge people, because you don't know until you're in that situation. So the opinions of others that are judgmental, that haven't gone through my stuff, honestly, I roll it off, because I know the people that have been in the situation that I've been in, several situations, similar situations, they understand. I've met them and I've talked to them. I've watched videos on people, I've read books, and I've done my research. I still learn. I'm still learning throughout the years who I am and why this and such happened. In the last video, I said I would do research on it, and I did. It was Stockholm syndrome, right? Where you feel a connection, you feel a bond with your abuser. I didn't even know that's what it was called, and I couldn't even explain the feeling. I had to try to explain it a few years back, because I'm not going to tell this part, but I will mention it because it does play a crucial part in my life. 10 years after I first met Ivan, something comes out about Ivan that affected my family. I thought I was done and he was never going to be able to affect my family again, but he did. So 10 years after, I had to talk about my situation for the first time out loud to strangers. And I kept being asked, why did you stay in the situation? Why? I was shamed for it and felt really bad. And I couldn't explain it. I didn't know how to explain it. It was just a feeling, but I didn't know how to explain it. Then I find out about Stockholm syndrome, and I'm like, that's what it was. I felt a connection and a bond with my abuser. And it's weird, because I remember I would never tell what I was going through. If my mom had inklings or suspicions, she would speak on it and I'd deny it. And I would even take up for my abuser. I would even take up for Ivan. Like, no, you're wrong. Like, he da 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 da. And so when he got arrested the first time and he went to court, I didn't even show up to court to press charges. Like, I felt bad for doing it. And so it's a weird feeling. I vowed years later to never ever put myself in that situation again. The situation also made me stronger. I still wish I hadn't gone through it, but at the same time, it's made me who I am today. So I can't really complain because I love who I am today. But being alone and being with my family, it brings me peace. It brings me peace, and I don't feel judged, and I don't feel like I have to put on a show or have to prove myself. I'm just here, and I do my own thing. I do what makes me happy. I don't give a fuck about anybody else. It's true. I know it comes off as selfish, but this is my life. This is what I had to go through. I refuse to die not having enjoyed life. I've already suffered. Now it's time for me to enjoy it. And I am. Thank you for all of those who stuck through all of the videos and listened to everything. I appreciate all the love and support that I've gotten. I've been asked if anybody minds if they share the video. Of course not. I don't mind if you share. I want this to get out for people to understand more. Like I said, to reach those who have been through my situation, to say, hey, you know what? If I can do it, you can do it. And if I can help you along the way, I don't mind. A few years later, I started to try to write a book, and I got some therapy on my own. So I've done a lot of soul searching. I hope one day I can release this book. It's taken me a while, but until then, I don't mind giving chapters of what I've been through on here. You know, that was just one chapter. I still have so many more chapters that I went through, and many more chapters that I'm looking forward to. So please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and yes, share. I'm gonna try to make the next video a little bit more fun. We're gonna get in a little more lighter side of things. Around Father's Day, I will be doing a 2-part segment on my biological father. I am going to speak on my stepfather a little bit in the second part, but in most of it's going to be about my biological father. That's going to get a little deep too, but until then, I do have a few lighter fun things that I'm going to do before that. So if you have any questions or suggestions or requests, you can comment below. You can go to my Instagram. You can message me, however you want to do it. I'm trying to get another social media up so that way I can link it. But yeah, thank you so much. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day. And don't forget to love yourself, because you are all you have. Thanks. Hopefully we don't have no babies. I don't even wanna go